Hello everyone, welcome to Fullmoon Movies. The Arrival is a very different kind of science fiction film from the audiences usually associate with alien contact stories. Released in the mid 1990s, at a time when Hollywood was embracing spectacle driven extraterrestrial narratives, The Arrival chose a more grounded, paranoid, and political themed approach. Rather than focusing on invasion through force, the film imagines infiltration through influence, like corporate, environmental, and bureaucratic, and that choice gives it a surprisingly durable relevance even today. At its core, The Arrival follows Zane Zeminski, played by Charlie Sheen, a radio astronomer whose life collapses the moment he detects an unexpected extraterrestrial signal. Instead of being celebrated, Zane is swiftly discredited and fired, setting the tone for a story steeped into institutional denial and quiet conspiracy. Now, this opening immediately establishes the film's worldview that truth is not suppressed through dramatic crackdowns, but through paperwork, ridicule, and character assassination. It's a cynical perspective, but one that feels intentional rather than sensational. Charlie Sheen's performance is central to the film's effectiveness. Zane is not written as a traditional action hero. He's impulsive, stubborn, occasionally reckless, and emotionally reactive. Sheen leans into these traits, making Zane to feel more like a frustrated civilian than a trained savior. Now, this works in the film's favor. Zane's investigation feels messy and personal, driven as much by wounded pride as by scientific curiosity. His unraveling career mirrors the unraveling of the world's hidden truth, and the film keeps those arcs closely intertwined. As Zane digs deeper, The Arrival reveals its true interest, not aliens as monsters, but aliens as long-term planners. The extraterrestrials in this film are not conquerors arriving in ships to annihilate humanity. They are already here, embedded with corporations and power structures, slowly altering Earth's climate to suit their biology. Now, this environmental angle is one of the film's most striking elements. In 1996, climate change was far less prominent in mainstream cinema, yet The Arrival treats planetary warnings as a deliberate act of colonization rather than a side effect of human negligence. Now, that idea gives the film a chilling edge. The aliens themselves are revealed gradually, and when the truth finally surfaces, it is both unsettling and strangely restrained. The decision to give them a physical tell, like the reversed knee joint, is almost mundane compared to the grand visual effects, but that simplicity is effective. It reinforces the idea that these beings pass among us unnoticed, blending in just enough to remain invisible. The reveal scenes don't rely on shock so much as dread, and that slow burn is one of the film's strengths. Visually, The Arrival reflects its era, but not in a way that undermines it. The cinematography favors wide desert landscapes, industrial interiors, and muted color palettes. Much of the film takes place in Mexico, where heat, dust, and isolation becomes part of the storytelling language. The environment feels oppressive, reinforcing the theme that the planet itself is being pushed towards an irreversible tipping point. Now, while the special effects are modest by today's standards, they really serve the story without overwhelming it. The supporting cast adds texture rather than spectacle. Terry Paulo's character as Ileana Green provides emotional grounding, though the film doesn't fully explore her perspective as deeply as it could have. Ron Silver, as the corporate antagonist, embodies the film's skepticism towards the institutions that provide some form of secrecy. His calm, polished demeanor contrasts sharply with Zane's increasingly frantic behavior, reinforcing the idea that power operates quietly while resistance looks chaotic. Now, what truly separates The Arrival from many alien films of its time is its thematic focus. This is not a story about humanity uniting against an external threat. Instead, it suggests that humanity is already compromised, divided, complacent, and easily manipulated. The aliens succeed not because they are stronger, but because they understand how the system works. Corporations, governments, and media become tools, willing or unknowingly participating in planetary sabotage. The film's paranoia feels less fantastical and more like an extension of real-world anxieties. The pacing of the film is uneven at times. Certain investigative stretches feel repetitive, and the narrative occasionally leans too heavily on coincidence. However, these flaws don't derail the central idea. If anything, the film's rough edges really contribute to its tone. The Arrival feels scrappy and restless, mirroring Zane's mental state as he moves closer to the truth. This is not a polished thriller, but it's a driven one. The final act escalates into more overt action, and while it may not be the film's strongest section, it delivers thematic closure. Zen's attempt to expose the truth doesn't result in a clean victory. Instead, the ending suggests that awareness is only the first step, and perhaps it's not enough. The film refuses to offer easy reassurance. Humanity may now know the threat, but whether it can act decisively remains uncertain. Now, that ambiguity is fitting for a story rooted in distrust of authority and skepticism about collective action. Now, looking back, The Arrival feels like a transitional science fiction film, bridging the Cold War paranoia and modern environmental anxiety. It lacks the technical polish of later sci-fi classics, but it compensates with idea that remains unsettling and relevant. Its vision of climate manipulation, corporate complicity, and truth suppression resonates more strongly now than it did upon its release. On Blu-ray, The Arrival benefits from the improved clarity and enhances its desert cinematography and practical effects. While it's not a reference quality disc, the representation supports the film's grounded aesthetic. Now, this is a movie best appreciated for its concepts rather than its spectacle, and home viewing allows those ideas to breathe without distraction. In conclusion, The Arrival is a film that deserves reconsideration. It may not sit alongside the genre's most celebrated masterpieces, but it occupies an important space as a thoughtful, paranoid sci-fi thriller that dared to imagine alien contact as a slow, bureaucratic, and ecological takeover. It asks an uncomfortable question about power, responsibility, and denial, questions that feel even more urgent decades later. In that sense, The Arrival isn't just a film about aliens arriving on Earth, it's about what happens when humanity refuses to see what's already happening around, and how easily the end can come not with explosions, but with silence, contracts, and rising temperatures. Now, this movie is a must-watch.